Thank you all for coming. I'm sure you think there's some crazy stories about me, but I brought two people that have a crazier story. So they're going to tell their story today. But I will tell you that people ask me how I get into something like this, or what the Russian icons, or any of those other things. And my standard answer is it's an evolution. None of it is ever planned. It just happens. And it happens because of some incident that was only 10 minutes long, or whatever, some country I'm in, or some people I meet. So you're going to hear a story about one that's really strange here today, and I think you'll enjoy it. And Steve Humble became a friend of mine about 3 years ago, something like that. I had never met him. He called me on the phone and he said, I've been reading about your icon collection, and he said, it sounds like a very nice collection. And he said, I had an icon collection and I gave it to Kentucky University, and after 25 years they gave it back to me because they needed the space. So he says, I've been selling what's left, and I have the three best ones, and I want to sell them to you to go in your Clinton museum. And he said, I'll sell them to you for the price I paid for them 30 years ago. So that was Steve. And then we got talking, because he's a terrific guy, which you'll find out here in a couple of minutes. He said, you know, I have an African collection. And I said, well, I have an African collection. And he said, well, you know, when you get a chance, come out to Kentucky and take a look at it. So I made the mistake of driving 800 miles because I thought Kentucky was near Iowa. And I'm from the Midwest, I guess you know, so I should have known. But anyway, I got over to Kentucky, and he had 250, something like that, artifacts in his house. And they were all spectacular. And mine weren't that spectacular. Mine have been purchased in recent years. His were purchased over, you know, the last, I mean, they're all old. They're quite different than mine. So we got talking, and he convinced me to buy 50, which I did, and they got shipped out to Clinton and put in the warehouse. And I began thinking what I can do with them. And we kept talking on the phone, and it was another 20, and then, you know, a few months later, it was another 30. And before long, I found out he had 3 left in his whole collection. Anyway, he's going to tell you about that, and that's what I call an evolution. It's just a phone call about icons, and it ends up with all you're going to hear about today. And that's the story of my life, and probably Steve's also. I'd like to introduce to you now Steve Humble.
My name is Steve Humble, and I'm from Winchester, Kentucky. My good friend here of many years is Omami Koryati of Bamako, Mali, in West Africa. And Omami speaks 9 languages. Fortunately for me, one of those languages is English. I absolutely love African tribal art. For me, it is perhaps the most essential, direct, archetypal, indisputable art ever created by mankind. It has been said that to see such African works is to drink art right from the source, to return to the roots of man's artistic vision. What an opportunity for us all. Full of spirit, emotion, passion, and beauty, these works open your mind, are deeply moving, and go straight to the heart. Great art from Africa is second to none. Africa had traditions of abstract art, performance art, installation art, conceptual art, centuries before the Western art community ever dreamed up the names. Look at a great piece of African art and you will see the sculptor pondering life's universal problems and searching and expressing his solutions to these common experiences, relying on spiritual and divine intervention. You will be fascinated by the balance, the harmony, the dignity, the refinement of classic African forms that respond to this profound understanding. When you are looking at these African works, you will not be looking, you will be seeing. To see African is to look across vast tracts of land and endless ages of time, over sun-baked deserts and into damp tropical forests, along rolling savannas, towards cool highlands and jagged mountain peaks. To see African is a look upon a motherland that has cradled life since the dawn of time. This vision comes alive in many vibrant cultural landscapes where people have found ways to express the diverse texture of religious beliefs, social customs, and life's experiences with a spectacular array of stories, music, dance, and of course, artistic form. From the earliest development of the human race in East Africa's Rift Valley several million years ago to today's cities of Abidjan, Nairobi, Bamako, Bouaké, between these extremes of time, Africa and her people, like people the world over, have known and expressed all that life can bring. Feast and famine, wealth and poverty, deepest agony and joyous celebration of the spirit, birth, coming of age, marriage, family, illness and death, migration and settlement, rising and declining civilizations, peace and war, and influences good and ill from other parts of the globe. The art of these people reveal intense inner spirit that motivates the people and their cultures as they experience the opposites of life. The use of these art objects reveals spiritual attitudes shared by the people toward their land, their ancestors, and their children, and toward important events, both in the life of the community and in the individual's life. The objects instruct the young, reinforce cultural identity, hand down lessons of history, and strengthen commonly shared moral and social values. One of the greatest achievements of Africa's artists is their ability to take invisible ideas and create visible forms that our spirit and energy feel. The particular object exists not only as a symbol of an idea, but as a focal point, a point of intersecting of the human and the spirit worlds. The profoundness of shared meanings, the basic urgency to make these meanings visible, drives this art. This is not primitive art. This is primal art, a return to our origin and to our expression and essence. The African artist keeps creating to preserve and nourish the positive forces in his daily life and to overcome the hostile forces which the African believes exist in all things. This is the great balance in life in which the artist struggles with as he creates these awesome works. Today we are going to talk about three things: pottery, mask, and sculpture. Concerning terracotta pots, African pottery fired at low temperature in the open air is different than other pottery. Africans do not, for the most part, use a potter's wheel. Variations in life are pretty wonderful, and I think one of the great things about African pottery is that it looks so profoundly handmade. It is not about perfection. These works are anonymous. Most are by female potters. It is rare to know the artist's name, so we look at these works not for who did it, but for what they are as objects. The Western art world is to some extent about egocentricity, the whodunit. It is a relief that I do not have to think about who made them, which means that we are forced to think about the important things: form, function, and the main question, is it beautiful? What can we learn from these vessels? It's the form, the texture, the color, the patina. Though the pots exemplify the balance between fragility and whatever keeps it intact, as a collector of objects, I have come to see that what must survive does survive. Yes, the form performs a specific function, to hold grain, or water, beer, or ritually. Living with pottery works over the years has been thought-provoking. I see the potter at work making a statement. African pottery is functional above all else, to store grain or water, to cook or serve food or medicines, to keep treasures safe. Given the primacy of pottery, its intimate connection with the earth, its almost magical relationship to fire, we must keep in mind that whether secular or sacred, the most essential task of a vessel is to be filled. While not appropriate in a museum, I suggest touching an African sculpture, especially a clay piece, for it provides an additional and unusual sensation. Closing our eyes and concentrating on the sensations in our fingers is likely to evoke a new impression of delight, but also insight into what the potter has felt with her fingers as she made the piece. Lines, planes, and volumes in African sculpture have so smooth a flow that our touch records a living harmony that resonates within us. African pottery styles call for adopting a rhythm of life that is centuries old, inviting us to stop chasing after the new and relearn a certain functional simplicity often missing in our lives, getting back to essentials, going back to the source, familiar to the soul, the heart, and the unconscious. With clay, a maximum is said with a minimum of means. Less is more. With its bowed forms, with the lines of its forces, with its instinctive rhythms, and with its expressiveness, African art pottery has something to teach us. Gordon's collection contains the very best of examples. Concerning masks, what happens when a mask is danced? I want you to imagine that you are there to witness the excitement. We have an audience, timing, light, serendipity, costuming, dance, movement, gesture, music, narrative, staging, smells, taste, and touch. Envision the rich, multisensory orchestration of masquerade performance. The mask is just one part of the whole, but a special part. Masks are among the most fantastic works of African art, and their variety and magic are unique. They appear when people reach their limits and when help is needed from the world beyond. Ancestors in particular, but also natural spirits, use this medium of the mask to reach the living and to make their wishes known. The mask wearer is possessed by unknown forces and exchanges his humanity for a presence from the invisible world. Masks are sculptures of movement and should be imagined covered with extraordinary fiber, leaf, or feather costumes. Dancing to music on the village square where they move and turn around the spectators through swirling noise and dust. They are there to repress, celebrate, initiate, and entertain. These profound works reveal their artistic power through their use, and their mysterious force cannot fail to move us. By losing his inhibitions, the masked person becomes what he truly is, his true identity, and not what he thinks he is or is supposed to be, but what the spirit he represents might be. And he uses this disguise to let himself go, to surrender, to escape the confines of his own self. In short, in the petitionary religious act, man submits to a higher power for his own benefit. In transcendental self-forgetfulness, he enters a higher level of consciousness, the true state of spirituality. This masking is a communally shared, sacramental, and otherworldly experience. The mask is a tool and also a sacramental object. If the artist is gifted and undergoes such a mystical experience and is a person with special endowments for using artistic language, in this egoless state, by means of his carving tools, he can project into these shapes the same spirituality that guides his life. The essential condition in